The Black Doctors podcast highlights the stories of minority professionals with the goal of inspiring others. Season 2 provides more episodes and features a wider variety of professions. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and share with others, because the next generation can't be what they don't see. Tune in every Monday to hear our stories told by us.
Welcome back to this episode of the Black Doctors podcast. Today I'm privileged to be talking with Dr. Courtney Scrubbs. She is a physician as well as a lawyer. We're going to be able to talk to her about her life and how she's come to her chosen profession. Dr. Scrubbs, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and of course, please call me Courtney.
Okay, Courtney. Yeah, call me Steven. So, as a physician and a lawyer, you're currently practicing as a corporate counsel in the life sciences department at a firm in Massachusetts.
Yes, so I kind of refer to myself as a medical school graduate. I make that distinction because, like we discussed earlier, I didn't choose to go into a residency, so I haven't been trained and licensed. I have so much respect and admiration for my colleagues who have devoted their life to medicine, and I want to kind of make the distinction that I'm not really there yet. So I don't necessarily call myself a physician. I call myself a medical school graduate, but very firmly stand in my role as a lawyer and as a corporate lawyer. So that's one. And then the other thing I would say is I don't work at a firm. I used to work at a firm. Mm-hmm. But the very cool thing about my job is that I work in-house as a member of a larger business, corporation business team. So it has a little bit of a business and strategic partnership flavor to it than if I was working in a outside counsel law firm.
Yeah. So can you describe that difference between I didn't know there was a difference between a firm versus in-house counsel. What does that mean?
Yeah. So basically, I can give you an example that maybe you can identify with. So in a hospital, there are lawyers who work for the hospital. There are employees of the hospital. They handle only the hospital's matters. They represent the hospital either in litigation, or if there's a contract, a new doctor that's coming on, they will handle drafting and reviewing the contract for the hospital. But because the matters that a hospital might have are so vast and sometimes require deep levels of expertise, then in-house counsel might refer out a matter or partner with outside counsel in a firm. An in-house counsel's department might be anywhere from 3 to 20 people. But for a massive organization, they need far more lawyers with broader expertise for matters that they come up. So outside counsel folks work in a firm. They take matters sort of one at a time from clients, and they basically bolster, the efforts of in-house counsel. Is that clear?
Yeah, that's so interesting. So what's a typical day like as an in-house counsel?
Yeah, so it changes from day to day. My current role, I support a large pharmaceutical company, and it's a large international pharmaceutical company, I should say. And so my client is always the company, but the people, the individual clients that I work with from day to day are also members of the company's team. So they may be business people, or there may be other lawyers. So I'm usually serving someone who works for the company, not someone external to the company. That's one. Usually it's a counselor role. Someone has a question or someone has a problem, and and I have to kind of look into it and sort of give an answer. That's the big picture. More specifically, my last 4 years or so have been really focused on pharmaceutical manufacturing on a global context. And so I might have a client in Europe or a client in Asia that needs to contract with another pharmaceutical company and work out the deal, the terms of some type of, manufacturing transaction. And so I would be the lawyer on that transaction to represent my company in the negotiation. Wow. And in the drafting and execution of the contract. Yeah, it's a pretty it's a pretty interesting job when we're doing that sort of work. And it's definitely not something I ever thought was ever on my radar when I decided to go to medical school. It was just something I didn't even know sort of happened or existed. So
Yeah.
it's been a eye-opening experience for sure.
So, do you have any connections for this coronavirus vaccine?
Ah, I think I'm in the same boat that you're in, Stephen. I mean, I'm sure people think that you have a connection because you're a
True.
physician. So, and maybe you're probably closer to it than I am. I am aware, probably a little bit more aware than the average person on development, drug development, and more specifically the process that it takes to develop something in a lab and then take it out and test it with animals if you're going to do that, and to test with people and getting through approvals, the FDA, and so on and so forth, and all the ways that can go wrong.
Yeah.
And so that's the only connection I have to the information, but unfortunately, no connection to the product, nothing at all.
We'll work together and get the hookup. So when it comes
Okay.
down to becoming a physician and a lawyer, we talked briefly about this earlier, but at what point did you decide that you wanted to be both?
Yeah. So actually, it was my first year of medical school. You may have heard of the Dr. Cameron Lee Matthews, who
Uh-huh.
is a past president of the SNMA, the Student National Medical Association. I became acquainted with her before my first year, right before my first year, and during my first year, as I was involved in SNMA. And was really inspired by her journey, her path, and her boldness to sort of carve out her own space to do what she wanted to do, and then realize that it was a thing, that there were others who chose to add and amplify, their aspirations in medicine with this other discipline. And so I found, as I got to know more and more people like that were dual degreeers in that space, that they were a lot like me.
Mm-hmm.
We thought similarly, we had similar interests. And so I thought, okay, I think this is actually my tribe. Like, this is something that I really should consider. So it was really my first year of med school that I decided that I would eventually do it. I just didn't know when.
Yeah.
But later on in my third year is when I talked to my deans at my medical school and let them know, okay, I think I'm ready to make the transition. And that came from the counsel of others who had made this journey and had, said, this is the best time to go after third year. So you have the benefit of clinical experience, but if you decide to go to residency, you don't have the gap of 3 years from
Right.
fourth year to residency. So yeah, ironically, as I look to what may be on the horizon, there's still gaps. There's still that big window of time where I focus solely on practicing law. But that was the counsel, and I thought it was good counsel. So that's when I made the decision. I'm sure that your next question is going to be why, right?
Yes, the next question will be why. But before you answer that, for those that don't know, the SNMA, or the Student National Medical Association, is an incredible organization that represents underrepresented minority medical students and helps increase diversity of medicine. It's been around since 1964, accomplishing those goals. And you can see how this pipeline and this program of leadership and guidance has helped so many physicians, so many minority physicians get to where they want to be in life, just like with Dr. Scrubbs. But yes, continuing on with the why.
The why, yeah, and just to plug, to echo what you said about the SNMA, it's, it really was pivotal in my experience as a medical student. It really helped me develop skills that I use in my current role as an attorney, the organizational skills, big picture perspective, learning to influence people, how to motivate people, how to see beyond people's stated profession or stated skill set, to be able to see other things that they can do, their real skills, kind of behind their title, and align them with others and put them in teams to really get the best outcome. I mean, there's a long list
Mm-hmm.
of of what I learned during my very many years in SNMA. I think it's something like 10 or something like that. And so it's been one of the best decisions I think I've made in my career, in my lifetime. But yes, the why. So I always wanted to be a pediatrician. I always wanted to care for kids when I was young. Um, and as I, sort of progressed through school, I was involved in student government a lot. I became more exposed to law and policy and justice and social justice and really being an advocate. And so as a medical student, even before medicine, I started doing a lot of community work, did research at CHOP in violence prevention, just really started to plant my feet in a area that was still relevant to healthcare, probably more like public health, less clinical, but with this eye and this bend on social justice. And so I think when I finally made the decision, part of it, like I mentioned earlier, was because of an alignment with the community or folks who had sort of gone in that direction. But another part of it was, a curiosity about the other side of healthcare, and also this drive for justice and specifically, juvenile justice and this interest in advocating for children. So I actually went to law school to be a child advocate, and sort of, was pivoted a few times because of more exposure and influential mentors and folks in my life at times where I had to make some decisions. But my first reason for going to law school was to be a child advocate.
Wow.
Go figure.
So for students that are considering pursuing the dual degree options, what was the actual process, once you decided, because you had to put in applications for law school or take the LSAT, or how did the nuts and bolts work of applying to law school?
So I applied to law school like any other law student would. I think it varies. If you are at an institution, you're enrolled in an institution that has both programs, then your process may be a little different. And because it's all one institution, and they may have a way that you can apply to both at the same time from the very start. That wasn't my case. I attended Howard Law, the Howard University School of Law. Sorry. You are a Howard grad, so you know how we are.
Yeah.
But then I attended a small private osteopathic school in Philly. I was in a totally different city. And so I approached Howard, just like any other applicant, fill out the application, took the LSAT. I actually took the LSAT as a third year medical student.
Wow.
Go figure. Yeah, that was an experience. But I did well, and I did well in third year. And maybe it was because it was just a different, it was a break from clinical medicine to sort of do something different. But yeah, you took the LSAT, applied, and I really wanted to go to Howard. So I was super excited when, Howard sent me an acceptance. And I think the other nuance of the process was the academic leave of absence that I had to take from medical school to go to law school, and just going in and having those meetings with my dean, who, funny story, said to me, after 3 years of being an engaged medical student in student government, even in my medical school, and having worked with that administration and with that dean, who remembered my interest in law from the very first year. But, whenever I spoke with him during my third year and said I wanted to go, he said, yeah, we totally see it now. We totally see it now that we know you. And we think that you're probably not going to come back, that you're going to go out into law, and there's going to be a market for you, and you're going to absolutely love it, and you're not going to make your way back to medicine. That's what they told me.
Wow.
So, yeah. Isn't that something? It's something.
Yeah, well, you're still in the process of writing your story, so who knows what the future holds.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Now, overall, did you find that your decision was supported, or were there people that didn't think it was such a good idea?
Yeah, so definitely both. Like any major, decision. My mom sort of tried to bribe me with a car, with my favorite car. It was a Volvo SUV, by at the
Which I
time,
drive, and
to
I
not
do
do it.
vouch for. Oh, I love a Volvo SUV.
Exactly, it's a great car, and I ended up getting it anyway.
Yes.
But but yeah, she's just like, no, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. You've been in school for so long, like, let's get out of this thing. Um, but now she's super supportive, and now she's, when I graduated from Howard Law, and I was a trustee at the time, and I was hooded by, former President Bill Clinton, and was the only student that received that honor.
Wow.
She she had to eat her words.
Hmm.
So I think so yeah. So there were definitely people who weren't super supportive at the time, but there were people who were, and they supported me by encouraging me, by affirming me that I had what it took to really make this work, and be successful, or by giving me information and connecting me to people who had done something similar. And years later, 10 years later, because I started in 2010, 10 years later, I'm so appreciative of the folks who supported me, but also the folks who challenged me and made me, sobered me a bit.
Yeah.
Um, it made me a little bit more judicious, and thoughtful about the moves that I made. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is our first time actually talking, but I remember being at Howard, and I knew you were at the School of Law, and it was just like this your presence kind of preceded you. We know this was this student who's this rising star, DO, JD, and then super high up in the SNMA leadership, super involved, and then became a trustee at Howard. I'm like, who is this person? Like, who does all these things? So it is
Oh,
definitely an honor to sit and chat with you.
oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Speaking of the trustee, so what does a trustee do, and how did you attain that position?
So, I mentioned before that student government had become something that I really loved, mainly because I found that I had this passion for organizational development and leadership and policy. Back when I was in college, my bread and butter, the things I loved to do was write policy in college for the student government.
Wow.
And I think other people were probably like, there were other interests, that were being explored as a part of student government by others. And I think I was probably in the minority of folks who just like to really put policies in place. That piqued my interest, and I had no exposure before then to that area. And so, a trustee board, like any other big board of directors for an institution, is responsible for governance, high level governance, fiduciary responsibility, meaning, this kind of package of duties, duty of loyalty, duty of care to the organization. But they are responsible for long term planning and long term thinking and strategy, sort of setting the big picture goals for the organization, and then empowering the executive leadership to execute those goals, and holding them accountable, asking the right questions. Man,
Hmm.
I can't even overstate the importance and the experience, and the lesson I learned about the power of asking the right questions, or just asking questions in general. So that's the role of the trustee. It's for Howard University Incorporated, meaning the entire institution, the
Wow.
Howard University Hospital, all of the schools. Oh yeah, I mean, some people talk about, the time they met this celebrity, or the time they went to this concert, or the time that, for me, that highlight, stars in my eyes, was my time as a trustee for Howard, because, as you know, as a Bison, we have such an illustrious alumni base, and that includes, alum and non-alum who serve on our trustee board. And so I just encountered such amazing people, but I had this, opportunity to sit and discuss and impact the most the most intimate parts of Howard. And Howard is so intimately connected to American history, that it was just overwhelming to have that opportunity, and I reflect on it fondly daily. That's one of the titles I'm most proud of. But I was able to secure the role through a big election.
Okay.
So Howard is as an institution that has student representation on its board, but the students are full trustees. A lot of other institutions have student representation, but they're non-voting.
Mm-hmm.
And they sort of there for information or to provide insight, but they don't have committee responsibility and they don't have voting rights. And Howard is distinct in that that's not the case. Once you become a trustee, regardless of whether you're undergrad trustee or grad trustee, you are a full trustee. So I ran as a graduate for the graduate student trustee role, and I had to campaign for all of the professional and graduate schools across the campus. So the med school, the law school, nursing, everybody that wasn't undergrad.
I remember the campaign.
Yeah, a lot of work. I felt like I was running for office in DC, and in fact, several of our student trustees have gone on to run for office in various areas of the country just because the experience is so intense and so much like what it would include if you're running for a political office.
Wow. No, that's an incredible experience, and you've affected the lives of so many generations of future Howard students and present Howard students. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that you're interested in or you've been influential in is this group, the DAWA Investment Network. Can you describe that for us and tell us, what that group's all about?
Yeah, sure. So DAWA was founded as a spin-off group from a large Black women physicians Facebook group. It came as a result of some folks showing some interest in investment education, and a small group of us deciding to put an organization together to facilitate or respond to that interest. We are fundamentally an investment education organization, but we learn by doing. And so the women who are involved either invest in large public corporations through stocks, or they invest in startups through our angel group. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool, actually. Very, very cool. So it's been a very interesting journey because I, never had a formal business education. What I know about investments, I learned as an early stage corporate attorney who was facilitating investment transactions for hospitals and physician groups. So I learned being on the other side and basically said, listen, there are a lot of communities out here who are making moves, big financial moves that many of us have never been exposed to. Physicians who are becoming inventors, who are becoming entrepreneurs and are developing companies and selling them within 5 years and becoming millionaires, multimillionaires as a result. And there's no distinction between their skill and ability and ours. And so the only difference is exposure.
Absolutely.
And so, right, and DAWA was birthed in part to try to bridge the gap and expose, more folks to these other areas of healthcare and, and wealth building and the like. The other thing too is, for Black women physicians, if they are married, they often are the breadwinners or maybe the financial stewards for their home, and they carry the responsibility for educating the family and facilitating financial literacy of the family. And so the thought was, if we educate the Black woman physician, then we virtually educate her Black family, and so or her family generally. Yeah. And so part of it was also just to facilitate financial literacy, more financial literacy in the Black community, by making sure we know what to do, and also as high earners that we know smart things to do with our money, because a lot of times there's a gap there. There's so many things we just don't know. So so that's DAWA.
How many members does your group have?
Right now, our angel group has about 25 women. Our investment club has about 80 women. There is some overlap, but yeah, our numbers. So I guess our numbers are right around a little bit less than 100, and they're all over the country, every
Wow.
corner of
And
the
how long
country.
has your group been in existence?
So it's funny. I think we're at 5 years. I should know the date and year that we were founded. It's kind of a blur. I think it was 2015. I'm pretty sure it was 2015. And we started taking members in early 2016, I believe. So founded in 15, membership roster's been with us. Most of them have been with us since the beginning for about 4 years.
And what kind of folks are you interested in and bringing into your group? Or if they're interested, how would these ladies get in touch and get involved?
Yeah. So two things. Our angel group invests in startup companies by people of color. All of our investors right now are Black entrepreneurs, 2 men and 2 women. We definitely field a lot of pitches that are from physician entrepreneurs, so folks who have ventures in the healthcare space. But we also have investments in lifestyle companies. We have an investment with a company called Goal Setter. That's a financial tech company run by Tanya Vancourt. You may have seen her on Shark Tank. It's a super impressive company that teaches financial literacy to small children, helps them to learn delayed gratification of saving by way of a platform that's laid out for their use, not their parents' use on their behalf, but for their use.
Wow.
And it's super cool. So we hear from, folks who are thinking about starting companies can always reach out and express some interest that way for support, either for knowledge or for capital. For those we don't invest in, we have opportunities to kind of connect them with incubator programs or other investors in our network who are better suited to maybe support them. For women who are comfortable and they are accredited investors, they meet the federal government's definition of accredited investor and want to join our angel group, they can always reach out to me. My email is my name, Courtney.Scrubbs, COURTNEY.SCRUBBS@gmail. So just let me know, and then I can sort of direct them to our lead angels, Dr. Monica Miller and Dr. Mary Fleming, to, facilitate their entrance into our group. But those are for women who are have a little risk tolerance and capital that they are ready to invest. And then for those who want to join our investment club, they can reach out to me as well. Our current president is Dr. Robin Franklin Traylor, and she's a pediatrician based out, I think a pediatrician, family medicine doctor based out in Texas. But that's a little bit easier. There's no income requirement. They make regular contributions, financial contributions, and then work together to determine where that money will be invested. And so, folks who are interested in learning through that process can contact me at the same email.
I love it. I love it. Building some generational wealth in our communities.
Absolutely.
I am so impressed. Like a number of hats that you're wearing. You served as the Massachusetts Black Law Association president, in addition to all these other accolades and positions. And then you recently won a pageant title. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I'm glad that you asked me about that. So sometimes in this all of these heavy leadership roles, corporate spaces, you learn to take yourself very seriously. And I encountered an amazing physician lawyer, Dr. Regina Bailey, who's an emergency medicine physician, but was a patent lawyer as well.
Wow.
Who is a fitness competition champion and also a pageant queen, like 5 or 6 times over. And I think she was an NFL cheerleader as well, and an entrepreneur with
Jesus.
a fitness supplement line. Yes. Listen, these Black women physicians are doing the absolute most out here. I'm so inspired by them. But I met Regina virtually initially and saw that she was engaged in pageantry. And I ended up meeting, I think it's Chesley Chris, the current Miss USA. at a Black women lawyer function in New York, and her people she was with said, you really should consider pageants. You really should consider it. I said, yeah, no, I don't think so. I'm a curvy woman. I'm not size 0. I don't think that's just for me. And they're like, no. Like, you really should think about it. And so, so over the course of a number of touches for quite a while, more people sort of nudged me in that direction. And when I talked to Dr. Bailey, she said, it's a great thing to do, to have fun, to, develop soft skills that maybe you don't have to develop in your day-to-day career, or that maybe eroded a little bit in your day-to-day career, where you have to be so, serious and so corporate, as they say, and to wear beautiful dresses and to meet other queens and develop this sisterhood, but also to have a platform to advance the things that you really care about without having to work through a larger organization. And so one other passion I have is adoption and foster care. It's very much related to my interest in medicine, which is in pediatrics, and my initial interest in law, which is in child advocacy. As a law student and even as a current lawyer, I have represented pediatric clients who have been the victims of abuse and neglect, or who have immigrated to the country and are trying to stay in the country. And so this issue of adoption and foster care, I've learned, is so critical, because there's so many children who are placed in the system that need homes and need foundations and healthy families to love them and sort of prepare them for adult life. And a lot of times with our kids that don't get that, they sometimes become, the adults that we're so concerned about. Right. Sometimes are homeless, sometimes are incarcerated. And so to me, we talk about the importance of preventative health, right? And to me, I'm like, this adoption and foster care by strong, healthy, loving families is preventative care for our social system. It prevents us from really encountering some of the major social ills and the financial drains that we see in our society. So anyway, the pageant title pushed me to take my fitness more seriously. Mm-hmm. There's bathing suit competition, so I had to kind of got to get right to make sure I can represent well. It pushed me. There's nothing that will motivate me more than a competition like that, or having to stand on stage in a bathing suit to make you get your butt up and get in the gym.
Right.
And then developing my platform without the constraints or the foundation of an organization. So developing a platform and carving out how I'll move, how I'll advocate, who I'll partner with, has been tremendous. And then this particular pageant, so my title is International Miss Massachusetts 2020.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And now, because of COVID, it's 2021 as well. Thanks, COVID. But there are so many women in my system from all over the world. And, I love to travel. I love to meet new people and expose to new cultures. And so now I get to work with women who are graceful and elegant and kind and passionate about service from, Croatia and India, and we're sister queens, and it's amazing. So, it's definitely a difference from my day to day.
Right.
And again, something else I thought I'd never do, but I absolutely love it. And I'm grateful that I stepped out there to do something different.
That is incredible. I've heard of triple threat, but I've honestly lost count of the.
You flatter me, Stephen. You flatter me, but I'm gonna take it all. Thank you.
You earned it. So, what would you say to those folks out there that are listening? Like, oh my God, she's accomplished so much. I'm overwhelmed. There's no way I could do half the things that she's accomplished in her life thus far. What's your secret? I know there's no secrets, but what would you say has helped you get to where you are today?
I think self-awareness. Whenever students or professionals who are looking to make a career change reach out about, tacking on a law degree or going to medical school or doing something unconventional, I always say, I think it's really important to know yourself really, 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 really well, and then make decisions that align with who you are and who you want to be and what you really care about. I think sometimes we can get married to a track or a path or a title. And then we get close to the end of that road, or we get into that goal, and we realize that, it's great, we're unfulfilled. And I think while it's been a circuitous route for me, one thing I can say is that at each decision point, I really was able to check in with myself and make a decision that I felt really honored who I was at the time and what I wanted to accomplish at the time and how I wanted to live my life at the time. And so I think that's the key to a happy life, is to know yourself and make decisions according to what you want and not necessarily what other people want for you or what you think you should want.
Well, Courtney, I have asked you a lot of questions. The floor is yours. If anything that we haven't covered that you want to mention to our listeners.
Yeah, so I think the only thing I would mention is, man, there's just so much out there. There's just so much out there that you can do. And I think the real challenge of being in high school and college is exposing yourself to as much of it as possible, so that when you do make a decision, it's thoughtful, it's informed, and like I said before, it's aligned with who you are and what impact you want to make on the world. So I would say, work hard in school. Of course, A's open the door. A's open doors, and A's save money. A's kind of get you out of the loan space.
Absolutely.
If you're going to do any of this professional degree stuff, right? But outside of working really hard, be open-minded and expose yourself to as much as possible. Talk to people about and ask them, what do they do and what is it like from day to day? Set up informational meetings with folks, set up lunches, go to different networking events at different conferences. Just really expose yourself as much as possible. Fact-finding before you kind of hone down and settle in to sort of what you want to do. And then also, the power of relationships. I think if there's anything that has been incredibly impactful for me through this entire journey, all the different hats that I wear, is the knowledge that I've gained from people, not from books, but from people and their lived experiences. And then support and how people have opened doors for me based upon our relationship. So, I'll say get mentors, nurture those mentor relationships, prioritize relationships over things and money, because you're really wealthy when you have strong, vast relationships. So yeah, that's what I would say. And also thank you to you, Stephen. I think this is incredible, on top of everything else that you do, in serving our country and keeping people healthy, and putting people to sleep and waking them back up. You also are developing this podcast and giving people a platform, and giving folks an opportunity to share their journey and to share the wisdom of their journey with the masses.
Courtney, thank you so much for joining us. And for the listeners out there, stay tuned. Tune in next week for another inspiring episode.
The Black Doctors Podcast is a nonprofit, volunteer passion project with the goal of inspiring all who listen. Tune in next week for another episode of the Black Doctors Podcast with Dr. Stephen Bradley, your friendly neighborhood anesthesiologist.